Welcome to the BurgCast, the official Wartburg Athletics Podcast. I'm Trent Jackson, Sports Information Director at Wartburg College. In our inaugural episode, we interview Connor Bailey, a four-year member of the Wartburg football team and native of Knoxville, Iowa.
Connor, thanks for joining me. How are you?
Pretty good. Can't complain with what's all going on right now, but I'm excited to be here.
So update me. What's new in your life? How have you been keeping busy?
Taking online classes was a little bit new. I've been taking one online class through another institution all semester, so it's kind of the same, but at the same time, taking the one class I had at Wartburg was a little bit different. The Zoom classes were a little bit harder to pay attention into, but it was good. Staying busy. I just started my new job up at for the Iowa DNR at Gold Point State Park in Okoboji. Staying with my sister up here, so been able to spend some time with family and get a little bit of exercise in. But other than that, it's been pretty normal, I guess, of a quarantine for me.
Yeah, obviously, this isn't how you expected to finish out your senior year. I guess, fortunately, you were able to play your final season of football this past fall. But as a whole, how has COVID-19 affected you personally?
Yeah, obviously, I want to start off with that by, just sharing my regrets to all the seniors that, didn't get to participate in their last season, and all the other Wartburg athletes and athletes around the country that didn't get to participate in their season this spring. And but I'm very thankful that I got to participate in my final season, I guess. This COVID-19 is really scary times for everybody, I think. Things are kind of starting to open up again, whether that's a good idea or not, I don't know. I think this whole scare has just been a new experience, and I think we're all just kind of adapting and going with the motions as what we're told to do, I guess. So.
And you touched on it a bit, but I'm sure you have some friends in other sports here on campus that had their spring seasons canceled, like you mentioned, and maybe some of your football teammates, that some underclassmen that there's kind of they're affected in this uncertain situation. Have you had any conversation with them, or has there been any positive takeaways?
Yeah, so I guess I haven't had any conversations with like JoJo in baseball, or Grayson. I know he throws in track, and so does Justin Shoppy. I guess I haven't had really any conversation with them, but there's a couple baseball players in my coaching authorization class that I'm taking, and they were pretty bummed out. They're seniors, and they the next day in class, after they found out that their season had been canceled, they took it pretty rough, and very understandable. I mean, I couldn't imagine having my season taken away or anything like that. So I feel for those guys.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Wartburg baseball up to a 9-3 start. Wartburg baseball off to 9-3, softball 9-1, or that should be flip flop. But yeah, great starts for a lot of our spring sports. So
definitely,
that's a bummer. But maybe you've gained a perspective of not taking anything for granted.
Yeah, I definitely did. I mean, being able to look back and have that senior season will always be something I'll cherish now even more, because I got to have it. And like I said, it's just almost unimaginable just not being able to participate in that final year after all the work all the athletes put in. It's a tremendous amount of work, even at the D3 level, that most people don't understand. And it would be heartbreaking.
So you mentioned you're staying with your sister. Talk about your family and growing up in Knoxville, Iowa.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Northwest Iowa, a small town called Lorenz. I got 4 siblings. I got 3 older siblings, 2 older sisters, an older brother, and then a younger brother. So I grew up in Knoxville. I started out, I think the first thing I ever participated in was flag football in like the 2nd or 3rd grade. I can't really remember. And I thought that was the greatest thing ever. Running around grabbing flags, it's kind of just chaos on the field. And then I transitioned into track. I did a little bit of AAU track and a few youth track meets and stuff. And then I started flag football in 5th grade and played basketball a little bit here and there, but like foot or tackle football, kind of start when that started in 5th grade. I think I might have said flag, but when I started tackle football, that kind of really just took over. And I loved every second of it. And I played quarterback back then just because we, got the ball right away and just ran. So that was always a fun time. And when I got to high school, I was still doing 4 sports. I played baseball, basketball, track, and football. But then my sophomore year came around, decided I wanted to start working during the summers. Wasn't amazing at basketball, so decided to dedicate my winters to lifting and doing speed stuff for track. So basically all through high school, I was a 2-sport athlete doing track and football.
Right on. So you mentioned your brother Carter, who was a senior in high school this year. So you had kind of an interesting perspective now that he's looking at schools. And you said that he chose Central. You mentioned he's got some little grief about that, but does it kind of sort of take you back to what you were thinking at that time of your life?
Yeah. Go listen to everything that he was kind of going through. I think he's a little bit more worried about staying closer to home, which is, very warranted. I almost ended up going to Simpson because of how close it was to home. But, his whole process, he loved Wartburg and he liked Central because of how close it was to home. And, I didn't want to force him in any decision, and neither did my parents, just because I went here doesn't mean that he had to. I would have loved for him to go there. But, in the end, I want him to be happy and, go through 4 years of college and have as much fun as I did wherever he chooses. And but he's trying to get me to wear Central gear now. And I told him, I was like, I might wear a Central shirt underneath the Wartburg sweatshirt or something like that. But I'll be black and orange forever.
Right on. So take us back to when you were in his footsteps. How did you end up choosing Wartburg?
So the first college that I really ever looked at was Buena Vista. I went on a junior day visit there. And I loved it there. My dad went to college there. It's close to a bunch of family up here in Northwest Iowa. And, first initial thought was, I was going to go there. But then I went on college visits to Morningside, Simpson, Central, Wartburg. And I narrowed it down. I wanted to go to a small college early on. I liked the atmosphere there, and I also knew that I wanted to play a sport. And so I soon got it narrowed down. I kicked BV out pretty quick. I'm not sure what. I think it was just because it was so far away from Knoxville. I wasn't too concerned about proximity to home, but it's about 4 hours or close to. And so then I had 2 really close colleges. I grew up less than 30 minutes away from Simpson and Central. And then at a Wartburg, it's about 2.5 hours. And so I went on probably 4 or 5 visits to Wartburg and 3 visits to Simpson. Central was just, I knew Central had been there a lot. And so that was always just going to be my fallback option. If I didn't know where I wanted to end up, I knew that I would be close to home and be happy there. And, I just got a real big family welcome, I guess, at Wartburg. I loved the coaching staffs that I talked to. And everybody that I had a conversation with just had nothing but positive vibes coming from them. And it just truly, really made me feel like I was at home.
Cool. And, fast forward 4 years later and you're about to wrap up your time now here. And I'm sure with all the free time, you've had some time to kind of reflect on those past years. So tell me about some of your memories from, right first walking on campus and joining football in fall of 2016.
Yeah. The first few days of camp, that was like a big slap in the face, I guess. You don't realize how big of a transition I don't think it is right away. But the the practices and stuff kind of just hit me. And at first I was, real hesitant. I was like, I don't know if I want to do this for 4 years. I don't know. I had a bunch of second thoughts, and I was homesick. I call my mom and dad every night. But I guess those worries really went away probably at right at the middle of camp, or right as camp was ending my freshman year. And I found my friend group and started hanging out with, the guys on the team, and it made the transition into college really, really nice. But, after all that stuff I went through freshman year, whether or not I wanted to stay up there or not, and now that I look back on it and look back on the 4 years that I had, these are memories and friendships that I don't think I'll ever lose, and I'm still in contact with a bunch of my teammates and friends that I made through classes and stuff. I'm still in contact with them pretty much every day. We Snapchat back and forth, and we've been sending a lot of Snapchat memory videos and pictures and stuff recently, because this would be our last May term, and that's the kind of the fun time of the year where we're all out at the sand volleyball courts, hitting the ball around, playing frisbee golf, just having a good time.
So outside of football, you've been involved in several things such as work in the sports information office, along with FCA, which is the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. How did you get involved in those?
So my freshman year, I threw an application into Katie Joe, the former SID, and she accepted me, and I loved doing the sports info stuff. It was an easy transition with you coming in. You grasp it pretty well, and I love doing it. And that was a very positive experience through my 4 years working for sports info with FCA. So I didn't really get started into it heavily, or I guess somewhat heavily, until my junior year. I went to pretty much every meeting or close to my junior year. Got to listen to a lot of good speakers, got a lot of positive information and insight from, people that have been in our position as athletes and as Christians, that, really gave me a positive perspective of this whole college life and everything. And I got to help with making of blankets and stuff that they gave out during Christmas time my junior year, and that was awesome, because we're just giving back to the community and to people that really need it. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the listeners should know that you're an all-star on the basketball stat crew. So can you explain, most people probably don't know, you're sitting right down there on the scorer's table. So just to kind of explain, if you can, what your job was during games.
So if anybody's familiar with like ESPN or anything like that, you go on there and you see that little basketball court, and it shows up with X's and O's, and it has a little ticker on top telling you everything that's happened. Well, that's basically what my job was. Is somebody would call it out. It could be you or whoever was working that night. And Tim this year is an all-star, so give Tim a shout out.
Tim.
But no, so whenever somebody shot a ball, I'd have it called up, what number it was. And I plugged that into the computer, and whether it was a make or miss, and then who got the rebound. And then the same thing would go for steals and all of that. If somebody got a steal, then I'd mark who got the steal and who lost the ball and all that stuff. So it's kind of a lot that goes into it, but it's not as challenging, I guess, as I make it sound. I don't know how to make it sound as easy as it came, but yeah.
Well, you're good at it. So I think, you took up it pretty well, clearly. So, and you mentioned before how, you enjoyed it, had fun with it. And obviously that had to do with Wartburg, when men's and women's basketball teams having a lot of success throughout your time, including the women hosting NCAA tournament games, and you having a chance to work those. Do you have any favorite memories or certain games that come to mind?
I think it was my junior year. It was my sophomore year. the year that they hosted the Elite Eight as well. The game against I think it was East Texas Baptist. I didn't work that game specifically, but I was at the game. I came back. We were on break, and I came back and watched that game. And that memory was just, that East Texas being like the underdog, in the tournament and kind of being like a Cinderella story and making it to the Elite Eight. And they made it really close for us, and that was such a good year for us. That game was just wild, and I remember not having a voice after it because the whole crowd was just like, it was intense the whole game. But my favorite working memory was probably my junior year when they made it into the Sweet. They made it to Elite Eight, but they played the Sweet 16 here in Waverly. So
cool. All right, let's talk some football. You already mentioned the grind of your first camp, and your first 2 years you didn't see much playing time. I think you played in just one game your first 2 years.
I might not have played in any. I might have been a false stat or somewhere with the same number.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll give it to you, I guess.
Yeah, we'll give it to me.
But yeah, so your junior year, 2018 home opener versus Greenville, you scored a couple touchdowns. First two of your career, obviously. It was kind of late in the game. You guys were up pretty big, but it must have felt good to get into the end zone, kind of feel like you made a contribution.
Yeah, that was that was the first game I ever really got in major playing time with a collegiate game. And as a matter of fact, the first snap that I played was a run, and I had Matt handed me the ball, and I hadn't worked on many handoff meshes with Matt, and the first one I almost dropped, but that first run ended up being like 50 some yards, and I was really super nervous going into it. I was like shaking when we were getting the play call and everything, and but after that first run, it kind of all just slowed down, and even though we were up big, it still felt big time for me to come in and do some things on a varsity level, because it was a brand new position to me at that time. Actually, I just transitioned during the spring practices, so those were the first, I guess, real snaps that I'd taken at running back in college.
Okay, so no position. You don't get much varsity playing time freshman or sophomore year. What are some of the challenges or obstacles that you had to overcome going into your junior and senior year?
Obviously, the play speed was much faster from JV to varsity. It was like night and day difference, and the play calls coming in. There's so many more things that we do game plan wise in varsity than compared to JV. So there's so many more plays you have to remember. And just like the amount that goes into each week is so much. It's at such a higher level. When you're playing, you have to be on top of your game at all times, because you never know what's going to get thrown at you. The competition is outstanding. The players you're playing against are, some of them are twice my size. I'm not a real big guy, and I'm out there trying to get in front of them and slow them down so they don't kill Noah. So that was a huge transition for me, but it was fun, and it was a good obstacle to overcome.
Yeah, and you remember 3 consecutive conference championship teams and NCAA tournament appearances. So obviously you're part of some pretty memorable games at Wartburg. Do you have any one or two that kind of stand out as a favorite?
Let me think about that. I guess the game that might be the most memorable, one of my favorite memories, was a game I wasn't even dressed for. It was I actually worked sports info for the game against Trine. It was a home game in the second round of the playoffs, I believe. And
that's 2016, your freshman year, correct?
2017.
Sorry, 2017.
2017, my sophomore year.
Yeah.
I was sitting up in the press box, calling the game as it was going, and calling the plays out. And I guess that game was it was just really cool to be a part of, even though I wasn't I guess as a part of the team. It was just a cool game to be a part of, because Wartburg, that was some of the best football I've seen Wartburg play. And we just came out on fire, and it didn't really stop that whole game. So, cool. But my favorite memory playing, it probably was, just against Greenville, my junior year, because that was the first real playing time I got, and it was, the biggest game productivity wise, I guess I had, but it just really showed me what college football is really all about, and the camaraderie and everything that comes along with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, talk about this fall too, senior year. Maybe I'm sure you guys in your mind had no doubt that you could, be just as good. You have that question mark with losing, a guy like the Matt Seisha, but you guys came out and had another great year. Just talk about your final year.
So yeah, we came in, there's a big question mark without Matt, but we had all the confidence and trust in the world for Noah because, he was always in the film room. He was always doing what he, doing extra than what he needed to make sure that he's prepared. And he sat 3 years under Matt. And that's, I don't think there's any better teacher than Matt Seisha. But coming in, we all sat in the meeting room before camp started, all the seniors did. And coach asked us what was our goal for this year. And all of us, I guess, without hesitation, we just said, we want a conference championship. We want that third one in a row. That was, that was our biggest goal, our first goal. And, I think, it came as a little bit of a surprise. We didn't know how good we were going to be this year, but we knew we were going to be good. We had a lot of people returning. And so, we're rolling at, I think it was 8-0 or whatever it was. And we rolled into Central, and that it was an awesome game. I was sitting on the sidelines. We were down, I think it was 35 or something like that in the second half. And honestly, I can honestly say that I'd never thought we were out of that game at one point. I knew what we were capable of, and I knew that we just weren't playing the way that we were supposed to. And so that game was a roller coaster of a game, I'm sure, for most Wartburg fans, and it was for us as players too. But that, I guess, is the reason Wartburg is Wartburg, and it didn't take me till my senior year to realize that, but it was that senior year moment that was like, wow, I'm part of really something special, and I have something to cherish forever. But yeah, it was a fun senior year. I'd like to go back. I got a little bit banged up, I guess, mid-season, which kind of affected, how much I played. But overall, it was just an awesome experience my senior year.
Yeah, and you mentioned some of those teammates, such as Matt Seisha or Noah Dodd. But with good teams comes a fortune of having good, outstanding coaches and teammates. Talk about some of those bonds and relationships that you made from Wartburg football.
Yeah, coming in, I knew it was a great coaching staff. I mean, you've got Coach Toohey, Coach Winter, Coach Wheeler, and then Coach Willis, who've all been there over 10 years. And Coach Willis being there, I think this was his 22nd year or somewhere around there. Coming into a program that has a coaching staff that's so solid, and there hasn't been too much waiver going along with that. I knew that it was going to be something special, but I guess I never realized how great of coaches they were until I was a part of it. They spend countless hours in there making game plans, watching film, helping us understand what's going to happen. And Coach Wheeler as an offensive guru, everybody, all the players just look at him like he's a wizard. He comes up with these plays that are just crazy. He comes up with game plans that will every week that's separate for each team, and they just put in a lot of work. And coming in, I didn't get a deal with Coach Wheeler a whole lot. I was more with Coach Winter. I played defensive back my freshman year, and Coach Winter is such a positive presence everywhere. He's always the high intensity guy. Him and Coach Toohey kind of are the high intensity guys. They were the ones out on the sidelines, yelling the loudest when we do something great, and yelling the loudest when we mess up, or yelling the loudest when the ref messes up. And then the amount of talent that those coaches bring in for players is outstanding. We knew coming in as a freshman class, I think we had like almost 70 guys come in my freshman class. It was a huge class, and we knew coming in that we had a lot of talent. And a lot of us, really didn't get to prove ourselves to our senior year, or maybe our junior year. And I think that wait was just well worth it. We all came in and stepped up and did our part when we needed to. And I think that's what young athletes really need to understand. You may not get the playing time in your first couple of years, but the amount of experience that you get just sitting on the bench is tremendous. And then just being ready when you're called upon is kind of our motto, and just be ready to step up because you never know.
You're coming away now with a degree in environmental studies from Wartburg. How did you decide on that major, and just talk about your academic experience?
Yeah. So I came in, I was a bio major to begin with, in environmental science and studies, a very, similar major. And my freshman year, I learned second semester, we were learning about, I think it was mushrooms and the different types of, the different families of mushrooms. Or I should say fungi. And I just realized I liked learning about, plants and animals and all that stuff, more than what I liked learning about the human body and the anatomy and all that stuff that came along with a bio major. And then I also have an older sibling who had a similar major and is in conservation, which is what I want to get into, working for the DNR or County Conservation Board. So I made that transition first semester, sophomore year, into environmental science and studies. So I was able to transition pretty easily because the class load was very similar, and I was slated to graduate early in December, but I kind of had a summer class fall through last summer, and that's the class that I'm taking now, still through a separate institution. So that is it was a good transition for me, I think, because I really enjoy it and I don't have any regrets about coming there and making that switch.
Awesome. So I guess we'll wrap it up with some fun questions. Who was your sports hero or role model growing up?
I think the earliest memory I have of a sports figure, I guess, is Barber. He played for the. I'm always been a big fan of the Buccaneers. My dad was a fan when I was younger, and he got me like a little Warren Sapp figurine. And I just love that. But Barber, I read a book about him and I loved him. And I kind of idolized him for a little bit while he was, dominant in the NFL. So I think he's probably the earliest memory and my first idol, I guess, when it comes to sports.
So you must be pretty excited now if you're assuming you're still a Bucs fan.
Yeah, my roommates can attest to that. Brandon already called it. Brandon Childs, he said that I'm going to get a lot of grief for being a bandwagon now that they've got Brady and Gronk and everybody. But no, I've stuck with them through and through. So I'm pretty excited about it.
If not football at Wartburg, what sport do you wish you could have partaked in?
That's a good question. Just being that I was really only football and track in high school, I would have loved to have been able to run track. I was okay in track. I was a part of relays at state track, but I was never individually very fast or competitive, I guess. But track and field, Wartburg's got a great, tradition of track and field along with every other sport I think on campus. But I would have loved to run track just because there's a sense of achievement that you get it's different from football with a team atmosphere. You can't play without all 11 guys. But with track, you can set personal goals to, try to step your game up, every meet or every practice. The same thing kind of goes with wrestling, I guess, the more individual team sports.
Mm-hmm. Favorite Wartburg memory could be from football or just college in general, if you can point out one or two.
I think my favorite memory might be from freshman year. The initial friend group getting started. There's a group of about 8 of us or so that are all pretty tight knit, and I think that initial, I went to a college that I knew nobody at, and then I found a group of friends that I really can relate with, and just have those after school conversations with and hang out with all the time and not get tired of them. I think that might be my favorite, memory personally, and I have all that, those emotions that come with it and stuff.
All right, man. That's all I got for you. Thanks again for coming on. I really appreciate it. And I wish the all the best of luck to you going forward. And you let me know if you want to come back for some freelance basketball stat crew.
Yeah, I'll let you know when I'm in town. I appreciate the interview.
Sounds good, man. Take care.
Thanks for tuning into the BurgCast. If you enjoyed the podcast, please do us a favor with a retweet at Wartburg Knights on Twitter or a share on Facebook. Check out the official Wartburg Athletics website at go-knights.net for all the up-to-date news and information, where you'll also find the latest podcast posted. Feel free to email me at trent.jackson@wartburg.edu with any feedback, and thanks again for listening.